The silent frontier. The crimson dust swirled across the reinforced viewport as Ilara Chen gazed at the Martian landscape. 20 years she'd spent on this planet, and its alien beauty still captivated her. Olympus colony stretched before her, a sprawling network of interconnected domes and underground habitats that housed nearly 15,000 colonists. Humanity's greatest achievement beyond Earth, and as chief engineer, her responsibility. Still admiring her handiwork, the voice of Marcus Webb, Olympus Colony's administrator, broke through her thoughts. His weathered face appeared in the reflection of the viewport glass. Just thinking about Phase 6 expansion, Ilara replied, turning to face him. At 45, she still maintained the focused intensity that had earned her this position. The new agricultural dome is showing some pressure inconsistencies. Marcus waved his hand dismissively. That's why I'm glad you're here, and I'm just pushing papers. The board meeting starts in 10. You ready? Ilara nodded, following Marcus through the colony's central hub. Olympus had been established 30 years prior, in 2117, beginning as a research outpost before expanding into a permanent settlement. The colony was largely self-sufficient now, with regular supply runs from Earth serving more as trade than necessity. The boardroom filled with department heads. Agriculture, medical, security, communications, and science were all represented. Dr. Maya Okafor, head of xenogeology, was notably late, rushing in as Marcus called the meeting to order. Sorry, Maya apologized, her dark eyes bright with excitement. We've just detected something you all need to see. The holographic display in the center of the table flickered to life, showing a three-dimensional map of the Martian terrain surrounding Olympus. A pulsing red dot appeared about 20 kilometers to the northwest, near the base of Ascraeus Mons. What exactly are we looking at? Marcus asked, leaning forward. Energy signatures, Maya replied, expanding the hologram. Unlike anything we've recorded before. Initially, we thought it might be geothermal activity, but the pattern is too regular. Too artificial. A murmur rippled through the room. Ilara studied the data scrolling beside the hologram. How long has it been active? That's just it, Maya said. Our sensors only picked it up 3 days ago, but according to the readings, it's been steadily increasing for months. Something down there is waking up. Martian microbes don't generate energy signatures, said Dr. Hiroshi Yamamoto, the colony's lead biologist, and certainly not in organized patterns. Which means either our equipment is malfunctioning, Marcus said slowly, or we're not alone on this planet. The room fell silent as the implications settled over them. Humanity had explored Mars for decades, finding only the barest traces of ancient microbial life. Nothing that could explain what they were seeing now. I want a team assembled, Marcus finally declared. Maya, you'll lead. Take whatever equipment and personnel you need. But be careful, this could be anything from a sensor glitch to. He left the sentence unfinished. I'll go too, Ilara said, surprising herself almost as much as the others. If there's technology involved, you'll need an engineer. Within 48 hours, they had assembled their expedition. Ilara and Maya were joined by Security Chief Darius Kent, Communications Specialist Sophia Reyes, and exobiologist Dr. Jonas Kim. They departed at dawn in the colony's largest rover, the Pathfinder, a 6-wheeled vehicle designed for long-range exploration. The journey across the Martian terrain was slow but steady. The Pathfinder climbed over rock formations and navigated around deep crevices. By midday, they had covered half the distance to their destination. Energy signatures are growing stronger, Maya reported, monitoring her equipment. Whatever it is, it's definitely still active. Could it be some forgotten Earth tech? Darius suggested. An old probe or lost equipment? Not likely, Ilara replied. We've mapped and cataloged every human-made object on Mars. Besides, this energy signature doesn't match any human technology I'm familiar with. As they approached the coordinates, the terrain became increasingly difficult to navigate. The base of Ascraeus Mons was riddled with lava tubes and collapsed caves, remnants of Mars' ancient volcanic activity. The signals coming from inside that ridge. Maya pointed to a narrow opening in the rock face. We'll have to continue on foot. They donned their surface suits, more streamlined than the bulky spacesuits of the previous century, but still necessary for the thin Martian atmosphere and extreme cold. The group proceeded cautiously toward the cave entrance, each carrying specialized equipment. The cave mouth was barely wide enough for them to enter single file. Darius led the way, his suit lights illuminating the passage as it descended into darkness. The walls around them were smooth in places, almost polished, unlike the natural formations they'd encountered elsewhere. "These don't look like normal lava tubes," Jonas observed, running a gloved hand along the wall. "The patterns are too symmetrical." After descending for nearly 20 minutes, the narrow passage opened into a vast underground chamber. Their suit lights couldn't penetrate the full extent of the darkness before them. "Deploying illumination drones," Sophia announced, releasing 3 small flying devices from her pack. The drones ascended and spread out, activating powerful lights that gradually revealed the chamber's contents. Ilara felt her breath catch. The cavern before them was enormous, easily hundreds of meters across. But it wasn't the size that stunned them into silence. It was what filled the space. Geometric structures rose from the floor, smooth, angular shapes that couldn't possibly be natural. The surfaces were covered in intricate patterns that seemed to shimmer slightly in the drone light. At the center of the chamber stood what could only be described as a monument, a spiraling tower of the same material that reached toward the cavern ceiling. "My God," Maya whispered, "we're not the first ones here." Jonas approached one of the structures, scanner in hand. "These aren't recent constructions. According to initial readings, these structures are at least 100,000 years old." "Impossible," Darius said. "Mars hasn't had conditions to support advanced life for millions of years." "Unless they adapted," Jonas replied, "or came from somewhere else." Ilara moved toward the central tower, drawn by subtle lines that ran along its surface. As she approached, the lines began to glow with a faint blue luminescence. "It's responding to our presence," she called to the others. "The energy signature is intensifying." Maya joined her, instruments tracking the growing energy readings. "It's almost like it's scanning us." The glow spread from the central tower to the surrounding structures, illuminating patterns across the entire chamber. The ground beneath them trembled slightly. "Everyone back to the entrance," Darius ordered. "Now." But before they could move, a section of the floor near the tower slid open, revealing a descending staircase that hadn't been visible before. The blue glow intensified, pulsing in a rhythm that seemed almost like a beckoning. "We should report back to Olympus before proceeding further," Sophia suggested, already establishing a communication link with the colony. "No signal," she reported after a moment. "Something's blocking transmission." A low humming filled the chamber, vibrating through their boots. The illumination drones began to malfunction, their lights flickering erratically. "The energy field is affecting our equipment," Ilara noted, checking her suit diagnostics. "Nothing critical yet, but we should." Her words were cut short as a more violent tremor shook the cavern. Dust and rocks began to fall from the ceiling. "Cave in," Darius shouted. "Move." They raced toward the entrance passage, but they were too late. With a deafening rumble, the ceiling near the entrance collapsed, sending tons of Martian rock crashing down and sealing their exit. When the dust settled, they found themselves trapped in the alien chamber, the only light now coming from the mysterious blue glow of the structures. "Sophia, keep trying to establish communications," Ilara directed, trying to maintain calm. "Darius, check if there's any way to clear the passage." "And what about that?" Jonas pointed toward the open staircase, still beckoning with its blue light. "Whatever activated this place seems to want us to go down there." Ilara looked from the collapsed entrance to the mysterious staircase. With their exit blocked and no communication with Olympus, they had limited options. We need to find another way out, she decided. And right now, the only path leads down. Maya checked her scanner again. The energy signature is stabilizing. I don't think this was an attack. It feels more like an invitation. The five of them gathered at the top of the staircase, looking down into the blue-tinged darkness. Stay together, Ilara instructed. First sign of danger, we retreat and find another solution. With Darius leading and Ilara close behind, the team began their descent into the unknown depths. The stairs continued down for what seemed like hundreds of meters, eventually opening into another chamber, smaller than the first, but even more astonishing. The walls were covered in what could only be described as technology. Panels with flowing symbols, recessed areas housing crystal-like structures, and in the center, a raised platform surrounded by 7 towering pillars. It's some kind of control room. Ilara breathed, her engineer's mind racing to understand the alien designs. Jonas approached one of the wall panels, studying the symbols. These resemble writing, a language. As they spread out to examine the chamber, Sophia called out from near the platform. There's something else here. They gathered around her, and in the blue glow of the alien technology, they saw what she had discovered. A transparent pod embedded in the platform's surface. And inside, perfectly preserved, was a humanoid figure, clearly not human, but not entirely unlike them either. Its skin was pale and smooth, with elongated limbs and a larger cranium than humans possessed. Is it alive? Maya asked. Before anyone could respond, the pod's surface began to glow more intensely. The symbols around the chamber pulsed in unison, and a vibration ran through the floor beneath them. I think, Ilara said slowly, watching as the alien figure's chest began to rise and fall in a rhythm disturbingly similar to breathing. We're about to find out. The sleeping figure's eyes remained closed, but throughout the chamber, more pods began to emerge from recessed walls, dozens of them, each containing a similar being. Whatever this place was, it was waking up, and the humans from Olympus Colony were right in the middle of it. The awakening. The chamber hummed with increasing intensity as more pods emerged from the walls. Ilara counted at least 30 before she stopped trying. The team huddled together near the entrance, watching in a mixture of awe and apprehension as the ancient machinery continued its awakening sequence. We need to establish whether they're hostile, Darius whispered, hand resting on his weapon. Let's not assume the worst, Jonas countered. This could be the greatest first contact in human history. Ilara studied the central pod where the first figure had shown signs of life. Whatever we do, we need to be careful. We've activated something that's been dormant for millennia. The blue glow pulsated through the chamber in rhythmic waves that seemed almost synchronized with the breathing of the creatures in the pods. Mina's instruments whirred as she captured every reading possible. The energy signatures are unlike anything in our databases, she reported. It's not electrical, not nuclear, almost like they've harnessed quantum fluctuations directly. Can we communicate with them? Sophia asked, already working with her linguistics module. If they built all this, they must have some form of language. Before anyone could answer, the transparent surface of the central pod began to dissolve, evaporating into the air like morning mist. The humanoid figure inside remained motionless for several seconds before its eyes snapped open. Ilara gasped involuntarily. The being's eyes were enormous compared to human standards, with vertical pupils set in irises that shifted colors like oil on water. The creature sat up slowly, movements deliberate and fluid. It turned its elongated head toward the humans, studying them with those mesmerizing eyes. Its mouth, small and nearly invisible until it moved, opened slightly. A sound emerged that seemed to bypass their ears and resonate directly in their minds, a melodic series of tones that felt like language but was incomprehensible. Sophia activated her translation algorithm, though she looked skeptical about its effectiveness with something so alien. To everyone's surprise, after a few moments, her device produced a response. Visitors, not expected. Long sleep disturbed. The translation was crude, likely missing nuances, but the meaning was clear enough. The being could communicate, and it recognized them as outsiders. "We are humans," Ilara said carefully, stepping forward as the team's most senior member. "We come from Earth, and we have a colony here on Mars. We found your facility by accident." Sophia's device worked to translate her words, converting them into tones similar to what the being had produced. The creature tilted its head, listening. "Earth beings. Mars is Aeolia. Home." The translation came through haltingly. "I am Guardian Talcine. Last cycle monitor." As Talcine spoke, other pods began to dissolve, revealing more of the aliens, all similar in appearance, but with subtle differences in the patterns that marked their pale skin. "What are you?" Jonas asked, scientific curiosity overcoming caution. "How long have you been here?" Talcine stood, revealing a height nearly 7 feet tall. Its body was slender but appeared strong, covered in a film-like garment that shimmered with the same blue energy that permeated the chamber. "We are Aeolians, first on Aeolia." The translation paused, struggling with concepts. "Sleep duration. Your measure. 50,000 orbits of your world." 50,000 years, Maya breathed. "They've been in suspended animation for 50,000 years. Talcine moved toward a control panel, touching it with long, 6-fingered hands. The symbols responded, rearranging themselves and projecting 3-dimensional images into the air. Star charts, planetary diagrams, and what appeared to be historical records. "We retreated below when Aeolia's air thinned," Talcine explained, the translation becoming smoother as Sophia's algorithm adapted. "Surface became hostile. We planned to sleep until restoration completed." "Restoration?" Ilara questioned. "You were terraforming Mars." "I mean, Aeolia." Talcine made a gesture that might have been affirmation. "Slow process. Machines work while we sleep. Not finished yet." As more Aeolians awakened, they gathered around Talcine, communicating in rapid exchanges that the translation device couldn't keep up with. The atmosphere in the chamber grew tense as the Aeolians' attention repeatedly returned to the humans. "They don't seem happy we're here," Darius muttered, maintaining his vigilance. Talcine approached the humans again. "Your presence is problem. Awakening premature. Resources insufficient." "We didn't mean to wake you," Ilara said quickly. "We can leave and return to our colony." "Not possible," Talcine replied. "Activation sequence cannot reverse. All Aeolians awakening now." One of the other Aeolians stepped forward, its skin patterns more elaborate than Talcine's. It spoke directly to Talcine in what seemed like a confrontational tone. Sophia's device translated fragments: invaders, territory, defense protocols. "I don't like where this is going," Darius whispered, subtly positioning himself in front of the others. Talcine responded to the other Aeolian with what appeared to be authority, then turned back to the humans. "Terrene believes you claim Aeolia. Wants activation of defense systems." "We're not invaders," Ilara insisted. "We're explorers and settlers. Mars, Aeolia, was uninhabited when we arrived. We didn't know anyone was here." Talcine seemed to consider this. "Your settlements? Extensive. We have one main colony, Olympus, with about 15,000 people," Ilara explained, deciding honesty was their best approach. "There are smaller outposts elsewhere on the planet." This information caused another stir among the Aeolians. More had awakened now, nearly 20 of them moving about the chamber, examining technology, and conversing in their resonant language. 15,000, Talcine repeated. "More than remaining Aeolians. We number less than 8,000 in sleep chambers." Another Aeolian approached, this one smaller and with differently patterned skin markings. It examined the humans with obvious curiosity rather than hostility. "I am Mira," the translation came through. "Biological studies. You are different, evolved differently." Jonas stepped forward cautiously. I'm a biologist too. We study life and its adaptations. Nira made a gesture that the humans couldn't interpret. Show me your knowledge. Exchange. Before Jonas could respond, Tareen and several other Aeolians intervened, their tones sharp. The translation device caught phrases like security risk and protocol violation. Talcine silenced the debate with a commanding gesture. Council will decide. Turning to the humans, it continued, you will remain here while we assess situation. Many chambers still activating. Full awakening requires time. Our colony will send search parties when we don't return. Sophia pointed out. We need to establish communication with them to prevent misunderstandings. Talcine conferred with the others before responding. Limited communication permitted. No location data. No technology details. Sophia nodded, accepting these terms. Talcine led her to a control panel where they could potentially establish a link to the surface. While they worked, Ilara approached one of the walls covered in what appeared to be technical schematics. Her engineer's eye recognized purpose in the designs, even if the technology itself was alien. This is incredible, she murmured, studying a diagram that seemed to depict an atmospheric processing system far more advanced than anything humans had developed. You understand. Nira had approached silently, watching Ilara with those color-shifting eyes. Only barely, Ilara admitted. But I recognize the intent. You were trying to restore the atmosphere. Nira touched the schematic, causing it to expand into a three-dimensional model. Process slow. Surface machines extract elements from soil, ice cores. Release into air. Build protective field to prevent solar stripping. Ilara's mind raced with the implications. That's why our terraforming efforts have shown better results than models predicted. Your machines are still operating. Inefficiently, Nira confirmed. Many failed over time, others operating at minimal capacity. Across the chamber, Maya was engaged in a similar discovery, examining what appeared to be geological surveys with another Aeolian. Jonas had somehow convinced Tareen to allow him to scan one of the empty stasis pods, his scientific enthusiasm apparently breaking through the Aeolian's suspicion. Darius remained alert, watching the interactions carefully while staying close to Sophia, who was working with Talcine on communications. I've established a basic connection. Sophia called to the others after nearly an hour of work. But the signal is weak. I can send a message to Olympus, but it will be text only. Tell them we're safe but unable to return immediately, Ilara instructed. Say we've discovered evidence of previous inhabitants. Keep it vague, but make it clear there's no immediate danger. Sophia nodded, composing the message while Talcine observed. As the human team worked to establish this tentative communication with their colony, more Aeolians continued to awaken throughout the facility. The sounds of activity echoed from adjacent chambers, suggesting the scale of the underground complex was far greater than they had initially realized. How extensive is this facility? Maya asked the Aeolian who had been showing her the geological surveys. Central hub of 17 connected complexes, came the translated response. Largest beneath what you call Olympus Mons. This is secondary facility. The implications were staggering. If what they were seeing was merely a secondary facility, the Aeolian civilization had built an underground world that potentially dwarfed human presence on Mars. Hours passed as both species cautiously shared information. The initial tension had eased somewhat, though Tareen and several others maintained their distance and vigilance. Ilara noticed that the Aeolians seemed to have a hierarchical structure, with Talcine clearly in a leadership position. Eventually, Talcine gathered the humans and the awake Aeolians in the central chamber. Council chamber prepared. Decision time approaches. They were led deeper into the complex, through corridors lined with more of the blue-glowing technology. The council chamber proved to be a circular room with a central platform surrounded by tiered seating. 7 Aeolians already occupy the highest tier, their skin patterns more elaborate than any they had seen so far. The 7 voices, Talcine explained. highest authority among awakened Aeolians. The humans were directed to stand on the central platform, while Talcine joined the Seven Voices. The chamber filled with other Aeolians, now numbering close to 50. One of the seven stood, its resonant voice filling the chamber. Sophia's translation device struggled to keep pace. Humans of Earth Colony. Your presence on Aeolia presents complication, awakening premature, resources limited, terraforming incomplete. Another of the seven continued. Options considered: coexistence, isolation, or removal of human presence. Darius tensed at this last option, but Ilara placed a restraining hand on his arm. We propose cooperation, Ilara said firmly. Both our peoples have knowledge and skills. Together, we could restore Mars, Aeolia, more efficiently than either could alone. The seven conferred among themselves, their melodic language flowing too rapidly for translation. Tareen and several supporters made forceful arguments that seemed to advocate for a harder line against the humans. Finally, Talcine addressed the assembly. Trial cooperation proposed. Knowledge exchange under supervision. Limited integration of efforts. This announcement was met with mixed reactions from the Aeolians. Some appeared supportive, others openly skeptical or hostile. Nera stepped forward unexpectedly. Humans possess biological adaptations we lack, their presence beneficial to restoration efforts. Tareen countered immediately. Humans consume resources, expand territory. History suggests territorial aggression. We've learned from our history, Jonas interjected. Our colony is built on principles of sustainability and minimal impact. The debate continued for what felt like hours, with arguments flowing back and forth. Throughout it all, Ilara noticed that the seven seemed to be weighing each point carefully, their attention shifting between the human team and the various Aeolian factions. Finally, the eldest appearing of the seven rose, silencing the chamber with a gesture. Decision reached. Trial cooperation approved with conditions. Human colony representatives to be hosted here. Aeolian representatives to observe human settlement. Knowledge exchange to proceed under protocols. Ilara felt a wave of relief wash over her. It wasn't perfect, but it was a starting point. A chance for coexistence rather than conflict. However, the elder continued. Activation sequence has triggered final phase of restoration plan. Cannot be halted. What does that mean? Maya asked. Talcine answered. Primary terraforming accelerates now. Surface conditions will change rapidly. May impact human habitation. How rapidly? Ilara asked, alarm rising. Matter of your months, not years, Talcine replied. Plan designed for Aeolian physiology, not human requirements. The implications hit Ilara like a physical blow. The Olympus colony had been designed for Mars as they knew it. The thin atmosphere, the radiation levels, the temperature ranges. If those conditions change dramatically and quickly, we need to warn our people, she insisted. They need to prepare. The seven conferred briefly before nodding. Communication permitted. Full disclosure of terraforming process allowed. As Sophia worked to establish a stronger communication link with Olympus to deliver this crucial information, Ilara found herself standing beside Talcine, both looking at a holographic display of Mars, of Aeolia, showing the projected atmospheric changes. Your people have lived on Earth, Talcine observed. Adaptation to changing conditions part of your history. Yes, Ilara agreed. Adaptation is something humans understand well. Then perhaps, Talcine said, its shifting eyes meeting hers, this is why our paths have crossed. Two adaptable species, one world to reshape together. As they watched the projection of a transformed Mars, neither could predict the challenges that lay ahead, but the foundation for cooperation had been laid, however tentatively. The awakening of the Aeolians had forever changed the future of human presence on Mars, and whatever came next would be shaped by both species' capacity for adaptation. What neither humans nor Aeolians yet realized was that there was another reason the Aeolians had gone into their long sleep, a threat that would soon require both species to unite or face extinction. The ancient defense systems beginning to power up throughout the Aeolian complex weren't just for terraforming. They were preparing for something else entirely. Convergence. 3 weeks after first contact, Olympus colony had transformed into a hub of frantic activity. The initial shock of discovering an alien civilization beneath the Martian surface had given way to practical concerns about survival in the face of rapidly changing planetary conditions. Ilara stood in the colony's operations center, surrounded by holographic displays showing atmospheric readings from across the planet. The numbers were changing daily now, sometimes hourly, oxygen levels rising, temperature fluctuations becoming more extreme, and strange energy fields forming in the upper atmosphere. The Eastern Agricultural Dome reported pressure warnings again, reported Lai Wei, her assistant engineer. The rapid external changes are stressing the structural integrity. Ilara nodded grimly. Reinforce the support struts and install additional monitoring sensors. We need to stay ahead of these changes. The door to the operations center slid open, and Marcus entered, accompanied by Talcine and 2 other Aeolians. In the weeks since first contact, a small delegation of Aeolians had taken up residence in a specially modified section of Olympus. The aliens required different atmospheric conditions and gravity adjustments, but human and Aeolian engineers had worked together to create a suitable environment. The atmospheric processors in Acidalia Planitia have fully activated, Talcine announced without preamble. Methane conversion will accelerate 3-fold. Marcus ran a hand through his hair, a habit that had become more frequent as the crisis deepened. That's faster than we prepared for. We'll need to adjust our timeline. The 7 are concerned about delays. One of the other Aeolians, Killis, added. She had been appointed as scientific liaison and had proven more adaptable to human communication styles than most of her kind. The restoration sequence has parameters that cannot be altered without risking system failure. And our colony has parameters too, Marcus countered. 15,000 human lives that we can't risk. Ilara stepped between them, having become accustomed to mediating these increasingly tense exchanges. We're working as fast as we can. The adaptation protocols for our habitats are being implemented, and the first retrofitted dome has shown promising results. The 3rd Aeolian, Varric, who rarely spoke in these meetings, suddenly stepped forward. There is another matter requiring immediate attention. All eyes turned to him. Unlike Talcine's authoritative presence or Killis's scientific detachment, Varric emanated a different energy, something Ilara had come to recognize as the Aeolian equivalent of anxiety. The deep scanning array has detected an anomaly, Varric continued, approaching from beyond your system's heliopause. Talcine made a sharp gesture, but Varric continued regardless. They must be told. The time frame has accelerated. Told what? Marcus demanded. What haven't you shared with us? Talcine's vertical pupils narrowed, and the patterns on its skin pulsed with agitation. After a moment of apparent internal struggle, the Aeolian leader motioned toward the central display terminal. May I? Ilara nodded, and Talcine approached the human interface, adapting to it with remarkable ease. The alien's long fingers manipulated the controls, and the atmospheric displays were replaced by deep space telemetry. This is why we slept, Talcine said simply. This is why we must restore Aeolia quickly. The display showed what appeared to be a massive object moving through the outer solar system, still beyond Neptune's orbit, but on a trajectory that would bring it into the inner system within months. What exactly are we looking at? Ilara asked, studying the anomalous readings. We call them the Void Eaters, Killis explained, her resonant voice subdued. They come every 80,000 years, drawn to worlds with developing biospheres. Like a predator following a migration route, Jonas suggested. He had joined the Olympus liaison team after showing particular aptitude for understanding Aeolian biology. Yes, Talcine confirmed. They consume atmospheric elements, strip planets of specific compounds necessary for life. Last cycle, they nearly destroyed Aeolia. Our ancestors developed defenses, but required a fully functional atmosphere to power them. So the terraforming isn't just about restoring your homeworld, Marcus realized. It's preparing a defense system. Precisely, Talcine said. The acceleration you've witnessed is automated response to their approach. The system detected them earlier than our calculations predicted. Ilara studied the trajectory data. How much time do we have? At current velocity, approximately 4 Earth months until they reach Mars orbit. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. 4 months to prepare for an alien threat that had nearly destroyed a civilization far more advanced than humanity's. We need to contact Earth, Marcus said finally. They need to prepare too. The Void Eaters have never targeted your world before, Kellis noted. Your atmosphere has different composition. Less attractive to them. Less attractive isn't very reassuring, Ilara pointed out. And Mars is humanity's first extraterrestrial colony. We can't abandon it. Nor do we expect you to, Talcine said. We proposed full integration of efforts now. No more separate projects. Combine knowledge and resources. Marcus exchanged looks with Ilara. The proposal would mean giving the Aeolians access to all human technology and systems on Mars, something Earth authorities had explicitly forbidden when informed about first contact. I'll need to consult with Earth, Marcus hedged. The time for consultation is past, Talcine said firmly. The threat approaches. Decision time is now. Before Marcus could respond, an alert sounded from the communication station. Sophia, who had been monitoring transmissions, looked up with a concerned expression. Incoming priority message from Earth Command, she announced. Director Chen is requesting immediate conference. Marcus sighed. Patch her through. The main display shifted to show the stern face of Director Mai Chen, head of the United Earth-Mars Initiative. Her eyes widened slightly at the sight of the Aeolians.